And welcome to Ask the Experts here on Newstalk 1290 CJBK Saturday afternoon, joined at this time every other Saturday by our longtime real estate expert and a longtime friend of not only myself, but the program, Joan Ball from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. You can reach Joan at any time by dialing 519-672-9880, joanball.com, the website address, and we welcome Joan to the program. How are you, my friend?
I am doing very well, Ryan. How are you doing?
Excellent. We did kind of talk a little bit before we went on the air this past week. Kind of crummy weather, but not winter weather, that's for sure.
It's kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
I will say it's. I don't know if it's added to the increase in a bit of more activity in the real estate market because people aren't having to trudge through the snow.
Yeah.
But we're certainly seeing a bit of a pickup, which is always encouraged. We'll see if interest rates are going to blip up. I kind of estimate that January 26th, the announcement will be made that it might go up sort of a quarter of a basis point, so
Okay.
a 0.25. So that may be the last increase. We're certainly seeing the increase in interest rates having the needed effect in slowing down the economy. But pricing for the properties, I think, will sort of level out and maybe see a bit of a decline in the first quarter of this year. And then going into the spring market, that'll be the telltale to see how we're really going to fare out for the rest of the year.
Excellent. And yeah, the 26th, we'll be watching that with interest, that's for sure. And yes, the housing prices, Joan, I'm just wondering, you talk to so many people on a daily basis, and people that are maybe thinking about selling their home, they must be watching intently right now to see where house prices are going.
Well, absolutely. And, I think we're sort of seeing the pricing at about the 2019 pricing. So that's where the frenzy is gone. It's not coming back. Sellers are certainly getting their heads around that. And what they're looking at purchasing is also reflecting an adjustment. So, when you look long term as far as interest rates, they're still very good. Certainly I'm seeing buyers say, okay, I'm going to get into the market because things have adjusted down, and I do think that the latter part of the year we'll see a stabilizing, and 2024 will be active. Now, we have to take into account that London is growing certainly at a rapid pace, and that has allowed us to have some stability here. We are a balanced market, so we're not as reactive as some of the bigger communities like Toronto and Vancouver. Alberta is doing gangbusters. They're certainly going to see some increases. That's where seems like the activity is occurring. But here in London, we're very stable. And I think if you're looking at a move over or a move down, that's something, or even getting into the market, that's well advised. Those individuals who are stepping up may, need to be very strategic about that. And some properties are holding their own a little bit better than others. So you really need to follow the information, the statistics, and the trends when you're looking at any kind of real estate investing.
Joan Ball with us on Ask the Experts from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. You can reach Joan at 519-672-9880. JoanBall.com, the website address. You use the word frenzy, Joan, and we're past that time frame, but also the word strategic. I want to maybe flip that a little bit and say the word strategy. Because of the frenzy we went through, has that changed your strategy in any way, the way you market and try to sell a home?
Absolutely. And having been in the business since 1993, I've seen a number of markets, and certainly seen markets that are similar to this one and reflect the more active participation that has to take place from a listing side of things, from the marketing perspective. So, and things have changed. Things have modernized in some ways and evolved as we've gone through the pandemic, but also as we've sort of graduated in technology. So that is really needs to, you really need to be due diligent in how you market a property and cross all your T's and dot all your I's. No longer are the days where you just put the sign on the front lawn anymore and just sit back and wait for the offers. You really need to be very actively involved.
Joan Ball on Ask the Experts. A friend was telling me earlier in the week, Joan, that they were looking on MLS. They were just checking out some homes and saw one that was very attractive, and they actually went to see it. There was an open house, and the response after they had seen the home firsthand was, oh my goodness, what a difference staging can do to a home. And I thought immediately of you, because you were the first person who ever told me about staging and educated our listeners. But they said they had nothing but great things to say about whoever staged this home. But they said, boy, oh boy, did they make it look so bright, open, sort of welcoming. But the reality was it was just over a 600 square foot home on the main floor. They said, boy, when you walked in, it still was a smaller type home, but the pictures just did it such wonders. And just to the point of staging, that is so important, is even just to grab people's attention.
Absolutely. And this is where, really whoever is listing a property, when you're working on a seller's behalf, you really need to make sure that you help educate them in order for them to not leave money on the table. And it's both from a staging perspective, professional photography, how you're marketing the property visually. That is so key, because many, many individuals are visual, and they will first become interested through the visual marketing. Obviously, you have to match it with the information, provide floor plans. As far as I feel, you have to provide floor plans, and in some cases, drone shots to give full perspective of location and what it has to offer.
You use a professional photographer, Joan?
I do, yes. I have used a professional photographer for many years now. I used to do some great shots, and I remember even photographers saying, oh, yeah, you do a pretty good job. But, there is something in the filters now and the perspective and the wide-angle lenses, if they need to use those. It really gives full representation. We do have a virtual tour walkthrough that can give you a full sense of the property. The floor plans give you perspective on where the rooms are laid out. It really is important to give as many details as possible so that when people walk in the front door, they're already somewhat sold on the property.
Right. And pretty well everybody, I'm guessing, Joan, looks online at the pictures of the home before they visit it, I'm guessing?
That is the number one starting place for individual buyers, to start the process and look at properties, and then either follow up with their agent or the listing agent. And I always recommend individual buyers have their own representation.
And where are we, Joan, these days with open houses, and not only logistically and what we can and cannot do at an open house these days in terms of coming through the pandemic, but also are they still important for potential buyers?
This is one of the ways that buyers can reinforce their interest in the property. Public open houses are starting up again. They've been up for a while. We've been actively involved with them for a while. And some individuals are comfortable accessing open houses, and some are still a little reticent. So virtual open houses aren't necessarily as popular as they were through the pandemic. There are obviously protocols and, things people need to keep in mind. Some individuals may choose to wear masks as they go through. Most listing agents will have a mask available if somebody chooses, but, most of the time if they choose to wear a mask, they'll bring their own. Right. Not touching too many surfaces, not using bathrooms, that kind of thing is sort of standard fare. But the public open houses certainly are as active. Is that the number one way of selling a house? No, that is not. Certainly the representation online, the promotion to the other agents, that's really, the other agents are the ones who have the buyers, so for the most part, so promoting to them is really my first go-to.
Can you just quickly explain then, Joan, if you don't mind, before our first break here, an agent open house, because you've referred to that saying many times over the years. What is that exactly?
So during the week, agents will have what's called agent open houses, where they'll have a list posted on our internal site of properties that the listing agent will be attending, or that the touring agents will have access to tour. If the agent isn't there, they can use the lockbox, and they're given permission to go through during a specified period of time. And that really helps us, because if I'm looking, say, in Byron for a property for a buyer, and I know that there's 5 or 6 key properties that I would want maybe to expose my clients to, then I can scoot through those properties in a 2-hour period, and that really helps my time, but it also helps me weed out which ones might be most acceptable and most appropriate for my clients. So agent open houses are really geared specifically to the other agents in the city.
Got it. Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts on Newstalk 1290, CJBK from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. Joan's phone number, 519-672-9880, joanball.com, the website address here on Ask the Experts. We're back with more on Newstalk 1290 right after these. Welcome back to Ask the Experts here on News Talk 1290. CJBK, our real estate expert, Joan Ball, with us from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. Some good questions in the mailbag here, Joan, we'll get to in just a moment. Just want to, curious your way of doing business. Do you pretty much try to, and it kind of goes back to the agent open house, do you try to keep on top of every home that goes on the market, just so that you know if you've got a client that is looking to buy, you have a handle on pretty well everything that sees a for sale sign, or even before that sign goes to the market?
To some degree it depends on how many listings are on the market. If it's a high listing percentage on the market, it's impossible to keep up on every property that's listed. But if I have a client that's looking for a specific property or a specific location or a specific price range, then yes, every morning I will get on the what we call the dailies sheet, and I will look at it online to see. And I'll do, the walk through the listing and the visuals and all of that stuff. And then I can send it on to my client if I think it's appropriate and it meets what their criteria are. If there's not a lot of properties on the market, which we certainly saw in December of 2021, there were, I think, 79 single-family homes in the end of December. It was very easy to keep up on what was available, what was out there, that kind of thing. One-floor condos, I'll keep up to date on those. I certainly have a prospect system that I can send to clients so that within their criteria, they automatically receive those new listings as they come on the market, so they're ready to jump on them if we see it, if they're so inclined. So, you try to as much as possible, but sometimes it's really hard, especially if you're searching in one specific area, you may not be aware of something that's going on in another area of London if it's not relative to any one buyer that you're representing at that time.
Makes sense. Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts from Royal LePage. Triland Realty. Quinn has a question. Quinn says, my uncle passed away and I am the executor of the estate and have a friend who says she can handle the probate as she just completed it for her brother. Can anyone do probate, or do I need to hire a lawyer?
So this is one of those gray areas in that you can have an individual represent you to deal with probate. However, I have to tell you, I would always recommend a solicitor. I would recommend legal representation, because in order to sell, say you have a house to sell, you're going to have a lawyer for that closing. And there are just too many things that a Joe Q public who doesn't have a law degree may not be aware of. And so, yes, you can have your friend do that. However, you do need to represent. You're the executor, so you have a responsibility to represent the estate as well as possible. So I would just want to properly qualify that individual. Are they a paralegal, or what are their qualifications specifically? Right now, there's been a little bit of a backlash or a slowdown with getting probate put through. I think it's about 4 to 6 weeks. Some can take as long as 3 months. I know about a year and a half ago, we were looking at 6 to 8 months because of the slowdown with the pandemic. But you can do it. There's a number of other services that I enlist in this kind of a thing too. Max Sold, which is an online system that will sell furnishings and belongings, and it's a great system for estates because it's very simple, and they go in, take photographs of each item or each category, and then post it within a specific time frame. Individuals will bid on it, and then there's a closing period, and then they will coordinate the pickups as well. So that can be a really good service to offer your clients in an estate sale too.
Because that's a very stressful time for somebody to have to take care of all that. And that again, Max Sold, Joan? Max
Sold, MAXSOLD.com. Great service, and I've used them many times with huge satisfaction from clients.
Awesome. And just to the best of your knowledge, Joan, if you are named the executor of an estate, do you have to be told that prior to, say, the passing of somebody?
Yes, I do believe you should be.
Right.
Is everyone? I'm not really sure. I can't answer that. Yep. I haven't had enough exposure to that end of things to tell you. But I do believe that it is something that's required. Yep. That you're aware of. However, if you're a family member and that's what's in the will, they may or may not. You may or may not recall the conversation that allowed that.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm curious about this one. Randy would like to know, for the first time ever, it appears we have mice in the house. As we are planning on listing the house next week, does this need to be disclosed to a potential buyer?
Yeah, so things like that are really considered a latent defect. So first of all, I'd want an exterminator to come in. I'd want to know where they're accessing and certainly be able to address that. And once you've addressed that, I think it's really important to disclose what you found, how you addressed it, and in the event that you believe there's no further issue, certainly do that. I am of the mindset that as long as you disclose and give people full details on the information, then you are then protecting yourself legally and providing for respect for the new owner.
Good advice. Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts on Newstalk 1290. CJBK from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. Joan's phone number 519-672-9880. JoanBall.com, the website address. I would imagine some people would come into a situation too, Joan, especially that type of a timeline. Home is going up for sale in a week's time, probably not wanting to have an exterminator's vehicle in the laneway, but like you say, to cover yourself, that's the proper thing to do.
Yeah, I think that everybody can deal with whatever it is. They just need to know what they're dealing with, If the coming soon sign isn't on the front lawn,
right? Yeah.
And having the exterminator in the driveway is not necessarily an issue.
True.
You're attending to it. So deal with that before you start your marketing and get it attended to. Understand the specifics. There's usually somewhere where they're entering and you can address that and find it. And, and then from there, it's a simple disclosure.
Excellent. I love your positive spin on that. Some people would get so stressed out, but there is a solution, and there's a solution to most things, that included.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts. And if you need the expertise of our real estate expert, don't hesitate to pick up the phone. Give Joan a call at 519-672-9880. And yes, I haven't mentioned, check out the website. I've given it, joanball.com, but very informative. Whether you are buying or selling your home, joanball.com is the place to go. Here on Ask the Experts, we'll be back with more with Joan on News Talk 1290 CJBK right after these. Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. Joan also sits on the board of directors with the London St. Thomas Association of Realtors. And another term, Joan, what is it, 2-year term?
2-year term,
yeah.
Yes. I'm really, really very grateful to be back on the board for another 2 years. We'll see after that.
Yeah.
But I'm also on the professional standards committees and nomination committee and the audit committee. So, it's an active participation, but very manageable, and has given me a lot of information that I can apply to servicing my clients. So I've been really benefiting from that as well.
Well, and you can certainly be a great resource to others if you've been for many years as well. Latent defect, you mentioned that last segment, Joan. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, latent defect is anything within your property that will impact on the future and peace and enjoyment of a future owner. Crack in the foundation where there's water coming in, history of the property being used as a grow-up, any impact as far as the area, anything happening, crime-related, excuse me, in the area. Anything that will just simply impact on their peace and enjoyment. So certainly rodents, mold, anything that you're aware of that you need to disclose to a potential buyer.
Excellent. Time for one more here, Joan. We're just in the final minute here. Grace has a question. If I put in an offer, do I have a cooling off period? And if so, for how long?
So BC just initiated this cooling off period, and I believe it's about 3 or 4 days. And it really is in sort of the test stage to see if this is making an impact. I think, quite honestly, it's a little too late. It certainly would have been much more appropriate during the frenzy when, multiple offers were being entertained and people weren't putting in conditions and that kind of thing. With conditions being indicated and inserted into agreements of purchase and sale, that sort of gives you somewhat of that cooling off period. However, you do have an obligation, if you can get the financing, to waive those conditions. So it operates a little differently. But I'm not sure if it's going to be something that we're going to be seeing here in Ontario. We don't have it presently. When you submit an offer, if it's a firm offer, you're committed to close. So, and certainly with your conditions, you have, if say, a home inspection or a financing condition. If you can get financing, you are expected to waive those conditions. It's not an option. Well, I just don't feel like it. You really are expected to firm up, what they say, firm up and waive those conditions. So I don't think we're going to see it in Ontario, but that remains to be seen.
Alrighty, time will tell. Thank you for the question, Grace, and thank you to Joan Ball here on Ask the Experts from Royal LePage, Triland Realty. Again, you can reach Joan 672-9880. Joan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, and we will talk to you again in 2 weeks, and our listeners can listen to you Monday to Friday with Real Estate Matters here on News Talk 1290. Joan, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
You as well. Take care.
Thank you. Joan Ball here on News Talk 1290 CJBK. And to everybody out there, please have yourself a great day.